On the day I left the postpartum care center, Stephen came to pick me up. He brought my favorite chestnut cake and a divorce agreement. His face showed no trace of guilt. Jessica is about to return from abroad. So, I looked at the words on the divorce agreement. The company belongs to the husband. All other assets belong to the wife and child. Good. That suited me perfectly, but I still furrowed my brows slightly, pretending to look displeased. Stephen, the company was built together with hard work over these years. Are you in such a hurry to kick me out? Stephen handed me the pen. You know, we started this company to fulfill Jessica's dream. So except for the company, everything else can be given to you. I quickly took the pen from his hand and signed my name. Afraid he might regret it, Stephen was surprised that I didn't cry or make a scene. 4 years of relationship. And you have no attachment at all. I glanced at the child in my arms, then smiled at him. Wish you and Jessica everlasting love. After leaving the postpartum care center, Stephen couldn't wait to drive me to the Civil Affairs Bureau. The moment I got the divorce certificate, I saw a joy on his face that I hadn't seen in a long time. He looked down at me. I still need to go home later to pack up my things and move out. Okay. No problem. I answered him gently and calmly. Stephen looked at me. You seem different from before. What's different? I turned my head to look at him, smiling brightly. I thought you would make a big scene, or cling to me not to leave, or beg me pitifully with the child. I smiled at him. Hurry home and pack up. Jessica's flight should be arriving tonight. Right. Don't waste time. When I got home it was already evening, and the child was peacefully asleep under the care of the nanny. Stephen stared at the baby, lost in thought. Have you decided on a name for the child? I looked at Stephen's hypocritical expression and found it quite amusing. His heart was clearly already at the airport. Yet he was still playing the good father role with me, but I still answered him calmly. Ethan. The one in wholeheartedly. Stephen frowned. Ethan. This is a child of the Johnson family. I smiled at him. Johnson family. The divorce agreement clearly states that the child is mine. I paused. But you are still the child's father when the child grows up. If you want to see him, I won't stop you. Stephen sighed, and a hint of guilt finally appeared on his face. Thank you, Cynthia. I won't be stingy with the child support. No need. I firmly refused. Stephen, I can support him. You should pursue your own happiness first. Stephen glanced at his phone. All right. Then. Goodbye. Goodbye. As I said. I waved to Stephen, then slowly closed the door. Great. Finally I could get rid of him. After Stephen left, I blocked all his contact information, then quickly listed all 3 houses online, with the total price about 5% lower than the market price. Soon, buyers were found for the houses, and I used the money from 2 of them to buy a school district house in full. The remaining money was left in the bank account to earn interest, with some cash flow kept to find a suitable opportunity to make a comeback, until an unfamiliar call came to me. Is this Cynthia? I'm Jessica. Why would Jessica call me? I slowly spoke. It's me. What's the matter? She sounded anxious. Stephen. He had a car accident. My blood type doesn't match his. Can you come to donate blood for him? What a joke. Stephen and I had been divorced for almost half a year. Heard that the day after our divorce, Stephen took Jessica to get a marriage certificate. Now he remembers me for blood donation. Am I some kind of cheap person? Sorry, Jessica. Stephen and I have no relationship anymore. You've got the wrong person. The voice on the other end choked up. She sobbed. But I just returned to the country recently. I don't know anyone else. I only know you. Please save him. Just returned. Only know me. Jessica's face was thicker than rusty iron. Jessica. You've been away for a long time. You might not know much about our country's medical conditions. As far as I know, Stephen doesn't have a rare blood type. There's plenty of blood in the blood bank. You should go to a doctor. Not me. With that, I quickly hung up the phone. Stephen and I met through a blind date. At that time, at 26, I started being pressured by my family to marry. And Stephen was the most high quality among all the blind dates. He was gentle and refined, with a straight and tall figure. Graduated with a master's degree from a prestigious university. And his every move was gentlemanly. I asked him, "Is this your first relationship?" He looked a bit shy, smiled and lowered his head. "To be honest, this is my first time in a relationship." First time. Stephen looked at my widened eyes. Is it that unbelievable? Then he started pursuing me madly. Stephen indeed didn't lie to me, just didn't tell me that in his heart. There had always been a secret crush on his first love. After marriage, Stephen and I co-founded a film and television company. Starting from scratch, in recent years, several young artists signed by the company have begun to make their mark when registering the company. I asked Stephen what we should name it. Stephen blurted out almost immediately, "Let's call it GAE Media." Yet, it wasn't until 3 years into our marriage that I learned the origin of the company name. That day, he was completely drunk. The driver carried him upstairs, and he was barely conscious, having been with him for 3 years. It was the first time I'd seen him so intoxicated. He kept shouting, "Jessica, Jessica, I miss you so much." Jessica. Who was Jessica? I imagined countless possibilities and braced myself for the worst all night. Stephen got up repeatedly to vomit, and I stayed by his side, caring for him the entire time. The next morning, Stephen saw me slumped beside his bed and touched my face with a hint of pity, saying, "You've worked hard, honey." I smiled and asked, "Last night, I heard you calling out Jessica's name over and over. Who is Jessica?" Stephen didn't expect me to be so direct. He abruptly sat up in bed. After a long pause, he finally spoke. "Jessica and I aren't in the kind of relationship you're thinking." "Then what kind is it?" I pressed. He lit a cigarette and said, "Jessica and I grew up together. She moved abroad a few years ago, but don't worry. Nothing ever happened between us." Disappointment washed over me from head to toe, looking at this man who had shared my bed for over 3 years. I barely recognized him. I sneered and asked, "So all those business trips to the UK every year were just to see her?" Stephen lowered his head and stayed silent for a long time. From then on, Stephen and I became strangers living under the same roof, but fate has a way of playing cruel jokes. 2 months later, during a routine checkup, I discovered I was pregnant. For the sake of the child, I considered giving him a chance because I didn't want my baby to grow up without a father. When the baby was 4 or 5 months along, I brought the prenatal test results to him. Stephen's eyes lit up with surprise. "Such a big deal. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Do you even care?" I shot back. "Of course," Stephen exclaimed happily, lifting me up. "You and the baby are the most important people to me." As I looked at Stephen, I thought he might not be a good husband, but perhaps he could be a decent father. Yet, the higher the hopes, the greater the disappointment. Stephen paid for the best private hospital for me as my due date approached. I spent all day in bed. But Stephen rarely visited. He always said, "With you away, I have to handle everything at the company. It's too busy. I'll come see you when I have time." On the day I gave birth, I nearly had a difficult delivery and was in labor for over 10 hours. but Stephen never showed up after the birth. I lay weak in the hospital bed, with Stephen's assistant beside me saying, "Cynthia, that was really tough, congratulations." I smiled at her and asked, "Where's Stephen?" She scratched her head awkwardly. "Stephen said an important client was arriving today, so he went to the airport to pick them up. He'll come see you once he's free." I knew every major client of the company. I looked up at her and asked, "What important client? More important than his wife giving birth?" The young assistant stammered. "Stephen didn't give specifics. You're still weak after delivery. You should rest." Seeing this girl, fresh out of college, I didn't want to push her further and simply said, "Okay." On the third day postpartum, I finally saw Stephen. He brought a huge bouquet of flowers, presenting it to me. "You've worked hard, honey." Then kissed my forehead. He glanced at our son beside me. "My son looks just like me." As I watched Stephen, I felt nothing but disgust. The emotions I'd bottled up finally erupted, and tears streamed down uncontrollably, splattering onto the blanket, startling Stephen, sobbing. I said, "Stephen, where have you been all these days? You have no idea I was in labor for over 10 hours and almost died on the operating table. You said I and the baby were your most important people. Why couldn't you be by my side?" By then, I was choking on my tears, but I cried even louder. I was putting on this show for Stephen, because only then would he feel truly guilty. Already weakened, my crying made my face turn pale. "Stephen, I can't stop you from having someone else in your heart. If you think him in the way, I can stop being Mrs. Johnson, but could you just spare a little love for me and the baby when I need you most? Even if it's just a tiny bit." Stephen furrowed his brow, his expression grave. "I'm sorry, Cynthia. I've wronged you." I turned my head and wiped the tears from my face, then forced a faint smile at him. "Don't say sorry. You're my husband, my child's father, and the one I love most." Hearing myself say that made me nauseous, but it worked wonders on Stephen. From that day on, Stephen began visiting the hospital room frequently to see me and our child, acting like a devoted father. But every time he came, I would crying about how tough things were for me, how much I'd endured over the years supporting him through building his business, and crying about how deeply I loved him because I knew that with his personality, he'd quickly grow tired of hearing it, and then he'd start longing even more for how wonderful his first love was. It only brought him closer to initiating the divorce himself, and my words were like a form of manipulation, making him feel guiltier when he brought up divorce. So he'd offer me more compensation, but what Stephen didn't know was that I was aware of every meeting he had with his first love over those months. Ever since I learned of Jessica's existence, I'd hired a private investigator, and I knew every time her plane landed. Finally, after I cried for 40 straight days, Stephen snapped. He growled at me, "Cynthia, are you not tired of this? Every day it's the same old story. You might not be sick of saying it, but I'm sick of hearing it. How did I never notice before that you're so difficult? Look around this whole hospital. Is there anyone else as argumentative as you? You're acting like a shrew." Argumentative. A shrew. I swallowed my rage and asked him softly, "What do you want?" Stephen was silent for a long time. "Let's get divorced. I'll bring the divorce papers tomorrow." With that, he turned and strode out of the room, but Stephen didn't know I'd already made up my mind to divorce him because he wouldn't be around much longer anyway, pulling my thoughts back from the past. I kept pondering why Jessica had called me with this request. There were doctors who could handle it. Why did she need to call me? We'd been divorced for over half a year, keeping to ourselves with no contact. So why reach out now? I put on a full face of makeup, took extra care with my appearance, and called Steven's assistant. I heard Steven got into a car accident. How bad is it? And which hospital is he at? The assistant seemed surprised by my seemingly concerned inquiry, pausing before replying. At third hospital are you planning to come? Mom. Miss Jessica called and asked me to donate blood. I figured I'd do a good deed, since we were once married and there's still some affection between us. On the other end, she seemed to relax. Okay, sis. Steven is in room 302. Should I give him a heads up for you? No need, I said, hanging up. I was determined to see what Jessica was up to. When I entered room 302, Steven was alone, lying quietly in bed. His head was bandaged, but I saw no other injuries. Was staring out the window, not noticing me enter. So I gently knocked on the door from inside. Steven slowly turned his head, his eyes widening when he saw me. Cynthia, what are you doing here? I smiled gently at him. Miss Jessica called me just now, saying you were in an accident and needed a blood transfusion. So I came to check on you. A flicker of light appeared in his gloomy eyes, but it vanished instantly. Thanks for caring. I'm fine. Where's Miss Jessica? Probably gone to pay the bills. Oh. If you're okay, I'll head out then. I turned to leave without another word. Where did you move to? I've been trying to find you. Steven's voice called out from behind me. I turned back and smiled at him. Why are you looking for me? He avoided eye contact, shifting his gaze away the moment it met mine. I want to see our child. Back then, saying he could see the child was just a stalling tactic to make him feel guilty and push for divorce. Now he wants to see the kid. I didn't respond to Steven and walked out of the room without looking back. Outside, Jessica was already standing by the door. Though I had no idea how long she'd been there, this was the first time I'd met her in person. She was even more delicate and charming than in photos. Her features were exquisite, bearing an uncanny resemblance to mine. Or rather, in Steven's eyes, I must be the one who resembled her. Had no desire to interact with her at all and was about to walk away, but Jessica softly called out to me from behind. Miss Cynthia, is that really you? Seeing her fragile, unassuming demeanor, I suddenly understood why Steven had always been obsessed with her. When I stayed silent, she added, I really didn't expect you to come. Thank you. Ms. Cynthia, I am new to Beijing and don't know my way around. I was so panicked earlier that I called you. I hope I didn't disturb you. I couldn't be bothered to play along with her act. As long as he's fine, I'll be going. But Jessica darted in front of me and blocked my path. Sis, there's something I actually wanted to talk to you about. Could you spare a few minutes? Ha! I knew Jessica had called me here for a reason. What's up? I said, forcing a smile at her. It's just that when Steven divorced you, he gave you all the assets. Right. Now his company is having some difficulties. You know Steven would never swallow his pride and ask you himself. But could you help him out? For the sake of Jiai, which was your joint effort. I found Jessica's expression utterly amusing. She was eyeing my assets, planning to exploit me ruthlessly without a trace. Of course, Steven left all the assets to me and only kept the company. In his eyes, the company was the golden goose, far more valuable than the assets. Previously, Steven and I had clear roles. He handled content rights and film promotions at the company, while I managed artist representation and finances. So he didn't realize that running the company required massive cash flow. Without that liquidity, the company was like a river without a source, inevitably unsustainable. With the company struggling, Steven was naturally strapped for cash to maintain Jessica's lavish spending, and no wonder Jessica wasn't happy, seeing Jessica acting so humble across from me. I responded in an equally pitiful tone. You still remember that Steven and I built Jiai to this size together. I left the company to you both. What more do you want? Jessica lowered her voice further. Cynthia. Steven gave you the house, cars, and 20 to 30 million in savings. We're not asking for much, just 10 million for us. And you can keep the rest for yourself and the child. I stared at Jessica, curious how she could say this without batting an eye. I sighed at her. Ms. Williams. Back when the company was planning to go public, it was valued at 200 or 300 million. What I got is nothing compared to that. I paused. I know you studied musical theater abroad. And Steven said he started this company to fulfill your acting dreams. That's why I didn't fight him. I handed over Jiai, which we'd built for 4 years. From what you're saying, is the company having issues? Jessica slowly replied. You know the company needs money everywhere. At least for Steven's sake. As your child's father, you should help him. Then Jessica pulled a slip of paper from her pocket. Hey, race the account number, just wire the money to this card. Ha. Jessica's scheming was so obvious. Even preparing the account number for me, whether that money was for the company or her own pocket. She knew better than I did. I looked at Jessica and sighed repeatedly. I really want to help you, but it's such bad timing. I put all my funds into a trust, so I have no cash on hand right now. Then I gave Jessica an apologetic look. I have about 30 to 50,000 available. If you need it, I can lend it to you for emergencies. No rush to repay. Jessica's eyes widened like saucers. Cynthia. How is that possible? You must be joking. I gazed at her gently. It's not that I want help, I just can't right now. You asked me to donate blood, and I came immediately. If I could assist, wouldn't I? Seeing me unyielding, Jessica suddenly changed her expression. Flipping faster than turning a page, she snorted coldly. Cynthia. Stop acting. If you don't want to give it, just say so. No need for this fake sympathy. Jessica couldn't hold back, showing her true colors so quickly. I looked down and pulled a business card from my bag. This is a financing firm that invested in Jiai when the company was first starting. You could try talking to them. Jessica's eyes flickered as she took the card from me. You'd really help us. Of course you. Don't hate me. Everyone has the right to pursue their happiness. Steven loves you. And letting go was best for all 3 of us. Don't you think? After a pause, I added. Steven looks unwell. You should get him a full physical exam, a thorough checkup. Then I turned and walked out of the hospital, tossing the bank account number Jessica gave me into a trash can outside. Wiped my hands with an alcohol wipe I carried. Jessica asked if I hated her. How ridiculous, why bother? After all, her precious Steven was practically a dead man walking. Who cares? As my child grew day by day, with my mom and the postpartum nanny helping, I finally had time to rebuild my career. Lately, artists I used to manage complained in our group chat. Cynthia. Jiai is a total mess now. That new Jessica, who supposedly studied musical theater abroad, can't manage at all. But the boss listens to everything she says. Company funding is super tight. We have to beg for spots on variety shows. Another firm was interested in investing, but after a few rounds with Jessica, it fell through for some reason. Yeah. If this keeps up, we're all done. I've already lost 2 endorsements. Calculating the timing, these artists were nearing the end of their 5-year contracts with the company. I joked half seriously. What if I started a new talent agency? Would you come? Yes, absolutely, Cynthia. I've been waiting for this. I smiled down at my phone. These kids were in their prime, and staying at Jiai would ruin their futures. I named my new company Chang'e Media when several artists ended their contracts and left Jiai. Their simultaneous farewell posts on social media went viral instantly. Was reviewing artist agreements in my newly rented office when my phone rang an unknown number. But I knew who it was. I hesitated for a long time before finally answering the phone on the third ring. It was Jessica's voice. Cynthia. Is it really necessary to be so ruthless? Not only did you refuse to help Stephen and me, but you're also poaching our talent. I demanded. What do you mean? She cursed angrily. Stop playing dumb. Cynthia, that so-called investment firm you introduced earlier, I bet it was just a plant you hired. Right. They demanded company equity right off the bat. As if I'm an idiot. She kept swearing. And now? You've even stolen all our company's artists. I never imagined you could sink this low. Don't know what Stephen ever saw in you. I replied calmly. Ms. Williams, perhaps Stephen never told you that I personally signed each of those artists and poured my heart into nurturing them step by step. Besides, as you know, careers in this industry are short-lived. And we can't afford delays, from what I've heard. GIE's financial situation isn't great right now. Jessica grew even angrier at my words, raising her voice. It's all because Stephen gave you all the money in the divorce. I smiled. That's because he was pursuing true love, a sincere and beautiful love that made him abandon his wife and child and give up everything, deserved every bit of it. We have nothing left to discuss. And if we did, it wouldn't be with you. With that, I hung up, counting the days. I wondered about Stephen's health, judging by this. Jessica hadn't taken my previous advice seriously and hadn't scheduled his physical exam. I saw Stephen again at a major platform's annual film and TV project launch event. Jessica was clinging to Stephen's arm as they entered the venue. Her belly slightly rounded and clearly pregnant. When he spotted me, Stephen started to raise his hand in greeting. But Jessica immediately yanked it down. I looked at Stephen. He seemed unwell, with a pale face and bluish lips, though he appeared normal at first glance. He was like an empty scarecrow during the mid-event break. I intercepted him at the refreshments area. Have you had a physical lately? You look exhausted. Stephen seemed puzzled. Is that why you came over? Yes, don't stress too much about the company, your health matters more. Stephen looked at me. I've just been overworked lately. So I'm not looking my best. How are you? And the child? We're fine. You before I could finish. Jessica walked up from behind and cut in. Oh. Still holding on to old feelings. Jessica. Don't talk like that. Cynthia and I haven't been in touch for ages. I watched Stephen. And it reminded me of the day Head said. Jessica and I aren't what you think. I glanced at Jessica's belly and smiled at her. You should focus on caring for your own husband. Noticing my gaze, Jessica lifted her head proudly. My child will grow up in a happy environment, unlike some kids born into single-parent families. As soon as she spoke, Stephen tugged her skirt. Enough. Stop it. Looking at Jessica, I only felt pity if she didn't take Stephen's illness seriously. Her child might never meet their father, who was more pitiful. I ignored Stephen and Jessica and returned to my seat. Actually, over half a year ago, during the company physical, Stephen and I went together. The company arranged annual checkups for all employees, including us. That was when I found out I was pregnant. Stephen was busy with a project then, so I picked up his report for him. It clearly stated a large shadow in his lungs, suspected to be mid-stage lung cancer, requiring further tests and immediate treatment. Stephen's phone was off, and pregnant me frantically searched for him with the report, but a private investigator told me he was with Jessica and sent a photo of them sharing a candlelit dinner, and the picture Stephen was beaming. The smile had never shown me. After 4 years together, ID ended up as a mere stand-in for his first love, Jessica. That night, I left Steven's medical report and the company annual report on his desk and texted him. Your physical report and the annual report are on your desk. But Steven never touched those files before moving out. His heart was only with Jessica, counting the days. Without prompt treatment, Steven might not survive the winter. Time flew. And Chang'e Media quickly stabilized under my management. But I'd have no further ties to Jessica or Steven until Jessica appeared at my office door. She looked somewhat worn but still impeccably dressed in a loose Chanel suit. Seeing me, she burst into tears. Cynthia. Steven is dying, my child is about to lose their father. Why? She sobbed and choked. Why is fate so cruel to both of us? She must have studied musical theater. Anyone would think she trained in acting. As she cried. She collapsed to the floor. And I slowly helped her to the sofa. What brings you here today? Jessica looked at me earnestly. Cynthia. The doctor says Steven may only have months left. Plan to take him to Switzerland for career. Loves the scenery there. So he can be happy in his final days. She paused. After that, we won't be able to manage Jai, since it's your shared legacy. I want to entrust Jai to you. Entrust it to me. What was this act? Seeing her crying pitifully, I felt a twinge of sympathy. Entrust it to me. You're not coming back from Switzerland. No. I won't return. I looked at Jessica. What do you mean by not coming back? Jessica slowly took out several stapled A4 papers from her bag. Cynthia. Your new company is thriving now. Why not bring Jai over to work together? I had the finance department draft a contract. And I can give you Jai at cost price. I just want some living expenses to go to Switzerland. I snapped out of my earlier sympathy instantly. She was trying to sell me toxic assets to cash out. Did she think I was a fool? But in business, you never turn down money. If the price was right. Jai wasn't something I wouldn't take. I took the contract from Jessica and flipped through it casually. 50 million. I double-checked the number on the contract. Yes. 50 million, with Jai's current resources and industry reputation. I'd hesitate even at 5 million. Yet Jessica was asking for 50 million. Did she really see me as a sucker? 50 million seems a bit high. Doesn't it? I said with a polite smile at Jessica, seeing a chance to negotiate. Jessica leaned in closer. Cynthia. You said it yourself, some companies valued it at 200 or 300 million. 50 million isn't much for you. And taking over Jai won't be a loss. No loss. How could she say that with a straight face? None of Jai's artists were even recognizable anymore. And I heard they'd been delaying project payments. Was I supposed to pay 50 million for a pile of debt? Did she think I'd been wasting my time in this industry all these years? That trick might work on Steven. But not on me. I rose slowly from the sofa. Ms. Williams. I'm sorry. But I can't help you with this. Jessica pursed her lips. If 50 million is too much, we can talk. How about 40 million? I didn't have time to waste on this. Not even 40 million. I wouldn't take it for 4 million. Jessica stared at me wide-eyed. Do you really want to watch the company you built from scratch just fall apart? The company. Steven did. I leave them all to you. I smiled at Jessica. Ms. Williams. Please leave now. Or I'll call security. Hearing that, Jessica became agitated. Cynthia. You're shameless. Why is it so hard to get any money out of you? You're obsessed with cash. She ranted non-stop. You're so calculating. Dumping that huge mess on Steven and walking away with the money. Me walking away with the money. It was Steven who handled the asset division. I didn't believe Jessica didn't know about it. Was it your idea for Steven to take the company in the divorce? I said coldly. Glaring at Jessica, Jessica shouted. So what if it was? Blame Steven for being too stupid to know what the company was worth. He hadn't told me it was worth $500 million. Why would I want that worthless thing? Jessica was so angry she didn't notice Steven standing silently behind her. Looking haggard and staring blankly, I snorted. Weren't you two soulmates? Soulmates. What a joke. Jessica trembled with rage. If Steven hadn't kept boasting about how much money that lousy company could make, why would I have looked at him twice? Or flown all the way back from England? He's just a social climber. Jessica swayed and nearly fell. But Steven caught her from behind. Jessica turned slowly. Steven. Steven. How long have you been here? Steven's voice was hoarse. Long enough. After a pause, he said softly, let's go, don't embarrass yourself here. After that, I never saw Jessica or Steven again. Steven's last contact with me was a phone call. He used the company landline number I knew well. I answered. Hello. But there was silence on the other end, just as I was about to hang up. A familiar voice came through. Cynthia. It's me. I know. Steven was quiet for a long time. I'm sorry. What's there to be sorry for? I replied. The past was long behind me. I'd always been someone who could move on. Steven sighed. Jessica had an abortion and went back to England. She won't bother you anymore. Okay. I paused. What did you really call to say? Steven's voice was faint, with a heavy nasal tone like he'd been crying. Cynthia. I just wanted to apologize once. I had the chance to be a good husband. A good father. Doing work I loved and was good at it. Could have been so happy, but I was ungrateful and lost my way. Ending up like this, I regret it. When I didn't respond, he went on. Cynthia. I'm dying. I don't know if you believe me, but during my chemo, all I thought about was you staying up late with me at work, taking care of me all night when I was sick. I cut him off impatiently. What's the point of saying this now? Steven asked cautiously. Cynthia. Could I see you and Ethan one last time before I die? I miss you both. Steven started to cry softly. That's not necessary. If there's nothing else, I have to go. I have a meeting soon. I hung up. My heart feels like it's being wrenched. And it hurts. Steven and I once had a beautiful past together. But I cannot tolerate that in the heart of the one I love. I am just a stand-in for his first love. So I won't love anymore. I will return him to his first love after Steven died. He left a letter for me and the remaining $5 million after he dealt with Jessica, did not open that letter. Then casually donated his $5 million to a charity organization. Establishing a charity fund in his name, I think this is the most dignified way I could preserve for him.